This is JJ Pianchi at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign interviewing David O'Rourke on August 14th, 2017 in the University Library. Where and when were you born?
I was born June 18th, 1945 in Elgin, Illinois.
Who are or were your parents and what are or were their occupations?
My parents' names are Daniel O'Rourke and Margaret O'Rourke. My father was a farmer, and then he was a bit of an entrepreneur. He operated a sales barn, buying and selling livestock. He died when I was 5. My mother ran, she was a housewife until that point in time. She then ran a bowling alley and worked at a Lincoln log factory during the summers. And she died when I was 10.
Do you have any siblings?
I do.
Who are they and do they serve in the military?
I have one sister, Patricia Butler, and she did not serve in the military. Did you want their ages?
Sure.
She is 76. 77. She's 77, sorry. I have a brother, Daniel. He is 74. He served in the U.S. Navy from 1961 to 1965. I have a brother, Stephen, who is 66, and he did not serve in the military.
Okay.
My father did not serve in the military.
Okay.
Farmer.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
High school.
Okay. What branch of the military did you serve in?
Air Force.
Why did you choose that branch of the service since you enlisted?
I didn't have any choice. Well, I guess the reason I did was after my parents died, I lived with my aunt and uncle. I graduated on June the 2nd. He told the recruiter to pick him up on June the 3rd. So I was going in. Why did I choose the Air Force? I was going to go in the Navy. My brother was in the Navy. He said, there's too many watches. Go in the Air Force and I got better food. So I went in the Air Force. I was going in either the Air Force or the Navy and ended up being Air Force, which was the right choice for me.
Okay. What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training? What was it like?
Culture shock. I grew up in a town of 600 people. Everybody was white, and I think probably everybody still is white in that town. The only difference in people was either you were Catholic or Protestant. When I joined the military, it was not like that at all. I had met one black person in my life. That was Ernie Banks, a baseball player. I met a lot of blacks right away in the military, and it was just a culture shock. And the way that that technical instructor met us at the airport was another shock. I never had anybody talk to me that way or act that way. He just was, keyed up and ready to go ballistic at the drop of a hat.
So there was a lot of yelling.
There was a lot of yelling. He told us to line up on the wall on the airport, and then we're going to go on this bus. And he said, when I tell you to move, you move. And I'm telling you, get out there and get to that bus. We ran out to the bus. Some guy got on the bus. He said, I never told you to get on that bus. You get your ass off that bus. He started swearing. I know, this is different. That was it. Now, you want to know anything else different about the military for me?
Sure.
I told you, it's a small town, northern Illinois. After basic training, I went to tech school in Greenville, Mississippi. Do you have any idea what Greenville, Mississippi was like for a kid from Illinois in 1963 when we had the Freedom Riders and a lot of the civil rights things, although the civil rights bill hadn't been passed yet, were enforced by the military. The townspeople of Greenville did not cotton to GIs. When we got to, when our buses got to Greenville Air Force Base, the first sergeant met us and told us, if you are from Chicago or Detroit or New York City, do not go downtown. If you are Negro, do not go downtown. If you, he said, downtown is inhospitable to GIs. We went downtown. Had to check that out.
I think you got into trouble?
Didn't get into trouble, but, take the bus down, have a few beers. I didn't drink. That was the first time I ever drank. But then we'd be waiting for the bus to come back, and there would be people would sometimes drive by. Fuck you guys, fuck the Air Force, fuck the GIs, fuck the government, all that kind of stuff. But there wasn't anybody, a lot of talk and not much, they weren't going to come out and fight the GIs.
Right.
But, and then the other thing is, when I would walk down the sidewalk, black folks would get off. At the movie, the blacks were in the theater, there was a white and black or colored drinking fountains, restrooms, all that kind of stuff. We didn't need that at home.
Yeah.
Everybody's white. They might have had Protestants and Catholics. That was it. So that was a culture shock to me.
Right. Do you recall your instructors, and if so, what were they like?
One of them was a total jerk. He's kind of sadistic, mean. The other one was fine. They were forceful, and one of them was demeaning. So I would say stern and without humor, rigid.
Did you receive any specialized training, and if so, in what?
Yes, I received training, specialized, I suppose. I was a personnel specialist. When I went in, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to play sports. So I was down there in Lackland Air Force Base, and they asked me what I wanted to do. I said, I want to work at the gym. They said, you can't work at the gym. You got to work in some administrative capacity. And I said, I don't know anything about it. Whatever you want me to do. They said, do you want to work with people or records? I said, people. They said, get on the bus, you're going to Greenville, Mississippi. So then I became I trained as a personnel specialist for 13 weeks in Greenville, Mississippi.
And what does a personnel specialist do? Or did?
Still does. And they do it here too, on campus, everywhere in the world. They take care of people and related issues. So in the military, from when you arrive at a base, then you will get what they call in and out processing. You'll meet the chaplain, you'll sign up for the credit union, the bank, you'll get your payroll stuff taken care of, they'll get you assigned to quarters, transportation, anything that's associated with the base that you need to know when you get there. They will take care of. They will take care of your payroll. They will take care of your reassignments. They will take care of your performance reviews. They'll take care of any kind of benefits you've got, your shot record, training, pay, discharge, reenlistment papers, military pay orders where you get extra money. Anything associated with a person, your record. If you get written up or if you get a commendation that goes in your file, you come on and look at your file. So basically anything that would do with an individual while they're in the military.
Okay. How did you adapt to military life, including the physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
Physical regimen was nothing. It was a piece of cake. The social life, it was different, but not a problem. I get along well with people. I get along well with guys in the barracks. It's a little bit different having 35 people in a room roughly twice the size of this. You know, and it's all open bay. So it took a little while to adjust to that. The social thing, not a problem, although there is some definition of order and who's going to be in charge and who isn't, a pecking order. So there's that. So there's the social. What else did you ask me?
Just food?
Food. Food was not good for the most part. It was. How did I adjust to the food? I went and got a part-time job, and I worked at a country club, and I ate at the country club. So that's how I adjusted to the food. Then when I went to Alaska, they didn't have a country club, so I worked at the NCO club, and I served drinks, and I ate at the NCO club. But when I was in Alaska, when we had, I thought when I growing up that salmon came in a can, but I found out that salmon doesn't have to come in a can. And king salmon, and we had crab legs. I never had crab legs. They're good, Alaskan king crab. So yeah, I adjusted to the military, and what I learned is the way they prepared food, if that was different than the way that I was used to, I just didn't eat the way they eat what they had. So much of it was fine, but some of it was just awful. Don't get eggs. So it was not a big adjustment.
Where were you stationed?
I was stationed at Lackland Air Force Base for roughly 2 months, and I was in Greenville, Mississippi. Lackland Air Force Base is in San Antonio, you probably know that. Basic training. Then I was at Greenville, Mississippi for 3 months, August, September, October, part of November of '63. Then I was home on leave when President Kennedy got assassinated. Then, I got to choose my assignment to go to McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas. They had roughly 25 GIs in class, and some guy came up and wrote 25 Air Force bases on the chalkboard, and you choose your base based upon your grade point. So people that had flunked the block, they went to Amarillo, Texas. I got to choose, man. I chose the closest one to home. I didn't know any of these places. I'd never been anywhere. And Wichita, Kansas was the closest place to home. So that's what I chose. It was a lucky decision on my part.
How long were you in Wichita?
2 years, and then I put in for Vietnam in May of '65. And I don't know how familiar you are with the military, but the Air Force had got what I called AFSCs, or Air Force Specialty Codes. What is your job? I was a personnel guy. In '65, they did not have personnel guys in Vietnam. They were in the Philippines. So they couldn't send me to Vietnam if the military wanted to.
Right.
But they did have an opening at Allison Air Force Base in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I went there.
How long were you in Alaska?
18 months, just shy of that.
And is that where you mustered out from?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And I did a little bit of, took some devious action there. I was a separations and reenlistments clerk. Are you familiar with the DD Form 214? I prepared those. I would have a stack of papers about 2 inches tall every day that I would take into Captain Robert I. Keene, and he would sign off on them. He didn't know these people. He wasn't looking at their names. They didn't mean anything to him. He might as well have been a stamp.
Right.
I was supposed to get out on June the 19th, 1967. I put my paperwork in for June the 1st, 1967. Captain Keene called me in and he asked me when he getting out. This was when it was getting close. Somebody must have tipped him off. He asked me when I was getting out. I said, June the 1st. He said, what's your expiration term of service? June the 19th. who authorized you to curtail back to the first? You did. He says, well, I'm not going to. He said, but I'll work out a deal with you. If you give me a good effort until June the 9th, you can get out on June the 9th. So that's what I did.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
I had the best friends. I had good friends in Wichita, Kansas. But I was just a kid and I didn't know anybody, and I was looking for some kind of alliance and association and that sort of thing, which kids that are 18, all of us do all our lives. But especially the fragility of this whole experiment that I was going through in the military was something, the moving around and getting these different jobs and that. So I had good friends there, but I had better friends in Fairbanks, Alaska. And I had better friends, closer friends, because we were going through a difficult time for all of us. I'm still convinced that somebody was conducting some kind of socio-anthropological study on young men. Take 5,000 GIs, put them in Alaska, 24 hours a day of darkness, no TV, no communication, no women, and unlimited drinking. And see what happens after a year and a half. So you have to do things other than your job. Otherwise, it just drive you crazy. So I formed some strong friendships there. And part of it was the people, and part of it was the circumstances. We were captive.
Sure.
No transportation.
Yeah.
No cars, nothing. And snow, deep.
Yeah.
We played cards. We played sports.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Friends back home. I didn't really have friends back home. I went to a Catholic high school, and it was a kind of a community high school, so people came from the county, and they would go for us. There was 12 miles, and there were 2 girls and myself in the class that went from Hebron. So I didn't keep in touch with those people, but I did write some girls. I wrote some girls from basic training and tech school. Friends. Family, I would go home on leave. Like I said, I was home when Kennedy got assassinated. I went home before I went to Fairbanks, and basically that was it. I would call. I couldn't afford to call when I was a GI, but I would call on Christmas a couple times a year. So call or letter.
What did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
Oh boy, I was busy. One thing I owe to the military is I've got a good pool game. You ever play pool?
Yeah.
I can play pool. So there was gambling when I went in. There's always gambling. But it was cards, and I played the cards, and I wasn't winning. So they had a pool table in the barracks, and I saw money changing hands, and I said, I can control the odds there. And if I get scared, I'll just play somebody of lesser ability, and even if I'm scared, I'll win. So I played in Kansas, and I played a lot in Alaska, and I played a lot ever since. I participated in sports. I was, I'll show you. Beaten. Miles an hour first base. Let's see where it was. I threw out the first pitch at the Cubs game, but I wasn't in the military. Yeah. Let's see here. Maybe it's not here. I was on the Air Force judo team.
Judo.
Judo, Judo.
Okay.
And I, there we go. I participated in Air Force Championships in judo, and that was fun. I played football and basketball and baseball, pool, ping pong, judo. I worked. I had 2 jobs. I was busy.
Okay.
Does that respond to your questions? Oh, when I was in Kansas, and I just really started to get into my own, I found out there was girls, and I got a car, and I would go out, drinking sometimes, and going after girls and that sort of thing. We didn't do that in Alaska. But I stayed busy, and I was active in sports, and the parlor games, anything, cards, played a lot of cards, pool and ping pong.
When you were in the service, did you read for pleasure, and if so, what?
I did. I didn't for a long time. I was not a good student in high school. I was a C/D student, and I just didn't have any, interest in reading. When I got to Fairbanks, I was an E3, and so I was in cubicles, and cubicles is two people to a cubicle, much like the guy in the computers, people working with cubicles. Then I got promoted to E4, and there was 2 people to a room. My roommate was a reader, and so I picked up one of his books. First book I read was Hurry Sundown by K.B. Gilden. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but I read that book. It was good. And then I just picked up one book after another. And I did a lot of reading for a year in Air Force, and then ever since then, I've read.
What particular book would you say influenced your life the most, and why?
Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. When I was in Alaska, we were mad at the Russians. And they had me sometimes on alerts. You're familiar with alerts. They would give me, I would go down to the flight line. They would give me a set of orders. So one time, they gave me an M1 rifle and a set of orders, and they took me out on the perimeter of the base. This is a big base now, because ground is cheap when you get away from the water in Fairbanks, Alaska. It's cheap.
Right.
I'm going to tell you another little incident before that led up to it. I was Air Police Augmentee, which is my secondary job. So I would augment military police, air police. And so they sent me down to the flight line one time, and I had on my helmet, and I had on my, I was November, I had on my field jacket, and I was on guard duty, and I would authorize people to enter the flight line, and I check their credentials. If they're officers, I salute them and I wave them in.
Right.
There's a guard shack there, so I'm in the guard shack. I get a phone call. Operation Broken Arrow. Put your gas mask on. It's incoming. Gas. So I put my gas mask on. Phone call. Operation Stagecoach, either Stagecoach or Broken Arrow, doesn't matter. Get on the ground, get down. So now I'm down, I got my gas mask on, I got my helmet on. It's November in Kansas, it's kind of warm, I fall asleep. I'm asleep on guard duty. A master sergeant is coming in, he's kicking me. He said, what the hell are you doing on guard duty? You're asleep on guard duty. I said, I don't know. I didn't plan on falling asleep. It just, it was warm, and they had me down here with all this gear on, and I fell asleep. Get your ass up. Okay, fine. So then I go to Alaska, and they say, okay, you're going to guard the perimeter. I already had one negative experience. Okay, I'm there, and they drop me off in the middle of nowhere. They say, okay, put a beer can on a stick, and then get back in the woods. So I go back 50 yards or so. The guy yells at me, get back in the woods. They can see you. You don't want anybody. I got an M1, no ammunition. I got to get back in the woods so the Russians can't see me if they come in, invade. Okay. So I'm back there. So it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm sick and tired of this. It's March, and so the snow is starting to melt. It's cold and wet, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, I'm just going to go up and take my abuse, whatever it is. So I come on up to the road, and here comes this Jeep. It is really moving fast, slams on the brakes. Where have you been? I've been on guard duty. What do you mean, where have I been? This thing's been over for hours. The beer can blew off the stick. They couldn't find me. They didn't know where I was. So I've been back there until I gave up. So then I went to my boss, and I said, hey, I'm no good. I'm no good at air police augmentee. Get me off of it. He said, I'll see what I can do. So then I was air rescue. Sounds good. Sounds exciting. They would have C-47s or C-130s. We would go look for downed aircraft. The state of Alaska cannot afford to send private aircraft out to look for downed private aircraft. Air Force would do that. So they'd give us a box of C rations, get on the plane, look out the window.
Right.
One time we thought we might have seen something. That was it. I was a natural at that job. So I forget the question, but that's the answer.
I was asking about what your favorite book was, and you said Crime and Punishment.
Crime and Punishment, and the reason it was is, the Russians. That's how this whole thing tied into it. I said, can the Russians be that bad if this guy's got this kind of insight into the human mind? Dostoevsky got inside that character's head, and he knew what the guy was thinking, who was a criminal. I said, this is an area for me to explore. And so when I got out, and I was definitely getting out, and I was definitely going to go to college, I was a psychology major. But I got fooled because a psychology major ain't what I thought it was. I thought I'd walk down the street and say hebephrenic or sadomasochistic, and it wasn't like that at all. But Dostoevsky was the best book I ever read.
Okay. Did you use libraries when you were in the service? Why or why not?
Never. Why didn't I? I don't know. J.J. Lack had books in the room, and nobody was reading. I was busy, part-time job, sports. I had a million reasons why I didn't, but I don't think I ever went, I don't believe I ever went to the library in the Air Force. Ignorance, I didn't know. I didn't know what a valuable resource there was. I found out later.
Okay. How did you return home?
Plane. I was going to hitch from Fairbanks, but I had an interview for a job with United Parcel Service. So I flew to O'Hare, flew to Seattle, and then Seattle to O'Hare, and then my uncle picked me up, and I went home and I interviewed, and I got a job as a UPS driver.
How were you received by your family and community when you came back?
Hey, you're home, get a job. Hey, you're home, let's go drinking. Okay. There was, I've heard people say, oh, people spit on me, people said it. People didn't say anything to me. Nothing, it was fine. It was just like if I'd have been in a job somewhere and I'd come back after a year or 2 years or 4 years. There was no hero kind of thing, and there was nobody was dissing me or anything like that. It was just, come on in and do your job. Get a job.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
It took a while. I told you I did reenlistments and separations. I was also a bit of the recruiter for Fairbanks. I didn't have a recruiter, but I was not exactly what you'd call a career man. So I had a filing cabinet, and on it I had, if you've got what it takes, take the Coast Guard. And I would talk to GIs when they're getting out, and I would give them a little kind of talk. I won't call it counseling, that would be overstating it. Hey, when you get back, it's going to be an adjustment period. It's not going to be the same. Your habits have changed in the last 4 years, partly because of what you've experienced. And when you go home, you're going to see things a little bit differently. And a lot of times people say, you can stop right there. I'm ready for civilian life. I don't need any help. I'm going to be okay. But there is a transition. And when I went home, there was a transition for me. And it was that lack of, well, there's a regimen on the outside as well as the inside. You got a job, you got to go to the job, you got to be prepared for the job, do all that kind of stuff, especially with UPS. But you don't have the folks around you like you do. I would not consider those fellow drivers the same as friends in the military. So it takes a while to adjust. Here's another thing that takes a little while to adjust. They got women in the States. I got a car. They got women. I got money. This is the kind of adjustment that's easy to make. Huh?
There you go. Have you remained in contact with or reunited with fellow veterans, and if so, who?
A couple of years ago, I guess about a year and a half ago, I called a friend of mine from Wichita, Kansas, Charlie White, and he's a friend of mine in the military. We had good times. I would have called another one, but Tom Brasher, but he died. My best friends were in Fairbanks, and they got spread out too much, and I haven't maintained contact with them. So I would say one person from the military, and he was probably my best friend, but I had a good friend, and I have a good friend in Boston. I would call him too, see how he's doing. So no, I would say that our paths have, we've taken different paths.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations, and if so, which?
I'm going to back up a little bit and do a little bit more on the have I retained friendships.
Sure.
I went to undergraduate school, I went to graduate school, I got a good job, I made money. That's different than a lot of those enlisted men. I don't know anybody else that got a master's degree. I don't know anybody else that was plant manager and did stuff, when you're somebody in the community. All of them had good jobs. They did fine. Most of those working for a living. That is blue collar in tone. They might be supervisor, they might be lower level management, but they didn't do the kinds of things that I did, and I think that changed us a little bit.
Sure.
Outlook and who you travel with, although I'm still partial to the enlisted man. The enlisted men, I think there is some separation that occurs.
Okay. Are you a member of any veterans organizations, and if so, which?
I've never been a member of any organization with the possible exception of ACLU. I sent them money one time. They sent me a card. I never attended a meeting. I'm thinking about sending them more money and getting another card. But other than that, no. I'm thinking about joining the Legion. I know the guys in charge of the Legion in Urbana. I like them. Why? Did you ask me why?
Sure.
Okay. The military was a routine kind of operation. I went in, I did my job. I had a lot of time off. There were two of us in the office at separations and re-enlistments. The other guy was a lifer. We had a kind of a tacit agreement. I do all the work.
he would be there to talk to people. So I took judo classes at lunch. I took time off. He ran the office. So, I'm sorry. Oh, so organizations. Why didn't I join the VFW? Well, I never went any area that would qualify me for that at the time when I got out. The second thing is the Legion. You think I want to go hear somebody tell me about how fun and exciting the military is? What he did and how he took this heroic stance and who knows, Iwo Jima or some godforsaken place? No. I was in the military. I'm done with the military. I might run into some officer and he'll say, oh, I had these guys do this. No. I don't care about that. No. I don't see, I see it as a lot of drinking and a lot of reminiscing about things that probably never happened or got embellished. So no, I got no tattoos. I got no desire to, rub shoulders with GIs. Although, when I talk to vets, I enjoy it. But no organizations.
Okay. What have you done since separating from the military? You mentioned going and getting your undergrad and then your graduate degree. What'd you get them in?
How many jobs have you had in your life?
In my life?
Yeah, in your life.
8.
I probably had 50, maybe 100. What have I done since? I've done every kind of donkey job there is. But basically, what I've done is it's pretty consistent where I've worked and gone to school. I worked at factories in Wichita, Kansas, different ones, and I went to business college. I worked as a computer operator in Carbondale, and I got an undergraduate degree in psychology. I worked as a computer operator here, and then I was a personnel officer here, and I got a master's degree in labor relations. I had 13 years civil service. I went and applied for jobs. There's some bias against civil service workers on the outside as far as perception of work ethic and what's required. I went to work at Stokely Van Camp in Gibson City. You know where Gibson City is? They used to have a cannery there, and I worked with migrant workers. Worked with migrant workers and locals, and we harvested sweet corn and lima beans. It's a lot of work. They told me they didn't care what time I got off, as long as I started at 5:30 in the morning, and I worked at least 12 hours. If I wanted to work longer than that, I could. Don't plan on getting any days off. I worked something like 45 days in a row, and I got a Tuesday off. It was so great. But once I got done with Stokely Van Camp in November, when it was everybody going home, then I got job offers. Because if you work in a cannery, they know you work. So then I went to work in a glass factory, and my graduate degree was in labor relations, but there was decided bent to the Labor Institute over here, and it was pro-labor union. A lot of the professors were World War II vintage labor folks. So I went to work in a non-union glass plant, and they wanted to stay that way. They were trying to bust a union in West Virginia. So they opened a plant in Rantoul, Illinois. They sold their division, and and so closed the plant here, and because they didn't have to worry about Parkersburg and the Union anymore, they just closed the plant. Then I did a lot of donkey jobs. Then I got hired by American Motors, you know them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turned into Chrysler, and I was HR manager there. And we went from 300 employees to over 1,300, 3 plants. And I found my element. As an HR guy, I know what needs to be done. I'm just not very well organized. So I'm kind of an okay HR manager. I'm great at delegating. What I did was they sent me out to take care of disputes.
Mm-hmm.
I was good at that. Office of Human Rights, Workers' Comp, OSHA, negotiate contracts, resolve labor management disputes, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was good at.
Mm-hmm.
Then they rewarded me with plant manager. So I was always in Rantoul, but they would send me out. I was plant manager, Rantoul, then they fired me and closed the plant.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Then
where you
I got
retired
into-
from?
Yeah, I retired from there. It's a little, I'm done with education. I pursued that, but I got into, I don't know, it's always like there's something outside of work I gotta do. And I got into real estate, and so I got into real estate investing,
Mm-hmm.
and I do that. Oh, and I substitute teach, and I work for the U of I Medical School. I work with medical students when they call me.
Mm-hmm. As a veteran, have you used your local library? Why or why not?
I love the libraries. As a veteran, what does a veteran got to do with it? Why would you say as a veteran?
So this question tries to get to the idea of, do you go to the library with your veteran status in mind?
Oh, I don't go anywhere with my veteran status in mind. No, I go to Lowe's with my veteran status in mind because I get 10% discount. I go to, I don't, my veteran status, come on. Does anybody really think that they got something with their veteran status? I guess. No, I do not go to the library and say, hey, I'm a vet, take care of me. No. I love the libraries. I go to the libraries any town I go to, Urbana, Champaign, Hayward, any place. I love the libraries. I use them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Veteran?
As a veteran, are there programs or types of books available at the library that you enjoy more than others?
Are there programs or books at the library?
That you enjoy more than
As a
others?
veteran?
As a veteran.
No.
Okay.
No, hell no. This book here,
The Good War by Studs Terkel.
I bought it Amazon. I didn't go to the library to get the book. I want to keep the book. I buy a book. If I want to read a book, I buy it because I buy it so I can read it and other people can enjoy it. The library, I love the library. To go to the library and avail myself of things, yes, the computer, the help I can get. Veterans, no.
As a veteran, is there something you wish you could change about the library that would enhance your enjoyment of it? So, for instance, would you like to see a reading club for veterans, or special
No.
programs, or special types of books?
No, I don't care about associating with veterans. What would I like to see? But there's things. I'd like to see something that would depict the military that is maybe a room or something that says military history, and maybe they've got some pictures of GIs or some areas that we've been involved in some way, shape, or form. And I'd like to see something like that. They meet with other veterans? No.
How did your military experiences affect your life?
One, it gave me a career. I can do HR work, I can consult, I can take care of difficult situations, problems that other people don't want, that I can resolve those. How did it affect my career? It gave me that. It it taught me how to shoot pool, and I taught pool for a year, and I teach pool now, and it's fun. And well, how did the military? Did the military? I got involved in some kind of issue one time, a couple times I guess, where I used judo, but you know, that was not directly attributable to anything the military did. I stepped forward to join the judo club.
Mm-hmm.
So I disabled a guy one time, put a chokehold on him. He's out of line. But no. I would say, if people, I don't know, maybe people tell you, hey, it gave me discipline, it gave me this, it made me do that. No. What it told me was, go to work, do your job, we'll inspect your room, but you're going to be the same slob or neat freak or whatever you were before you came in when you get out. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to, there's no big B.F. Skinner kind of thing going on here where we're going to change people's outlook on life.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe marginally.
What are some life lessons you learned from military service?
It's okay to be a minority. If you got a different point of view, that doesn't make you wrong. I would say accepting, seeing things from a different perspective. 3 of us went to Tokyo, Japan, Tachikawa Air Base on leave. And not everybody sees the U.S. as a good country and U.S. citizens as positive role models. Mm-hmm. That's something that I learned while I was in the military. Basically, what I learned when I was in the military is we're right. And if you don't think we're right, we'll come and get you.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I was very positive on the military. I put in for Vietnam. I was very positive on us being right and doing the right thing.
What message would you like to leave for...
I'm not done with that one yet.
Oh, okay.
I ran into, after I got out of the military, there was a guy named Dick Nixon, who was the president. Changed my opinion a little bit about the military and our involvement and what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and whether we were right and wrong and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So when I got out of the military, I joined the Young Republicans. I went to this one meeting. Then I went to undergraduate in Carbondale, and I would go and watch these demonstrations. And I saw 2 groups of folks, Vietnam veterans against the war and the Vets Club. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't really for either one of them, but I was certainly more towards the against the war than for it, and I was against Vietnam. So my feelings evolved.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just because Dick Cheney says something doesn't mean it's true.
Right. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear this interview?
Here is my thing. If you're in high school and you're in similar circumstances to me, you don't have direction. You don't have that direction being you're not going to go to college, you don't have a job lined up for yourself, no trade aspirations as such or a way to get there. Join the military. They'll give you a training
Air Force or Navy. Find out what you like to do and what you don't like to do, and then pursue it. Also give you some benefits when you get out. You can go to college. You can go to college while you're in the military. There's some benefits like VA. There are different things that, when I say VA loan or VA health care, there are places out there that will be a kind of a safety net. I myself have not used those, but they're benefits. So if you don't have direction and you're a young person, join the military. You'll get a lot of positives out of it. They're not all positive.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview? And if so, what?
No, I think it's fine. I liked the interview. I didn't know what the interview was going to be all about. I guess what I would like to do is I'd like to know about the different interviews that you have and what people have got to say. That's my focus. I'm a little bit. I saw the direction that it was taking, the library, and I don't see the veterans in the library being connected. I love the library. I told you that several times. I love the library wherever I go. Nothing to do with the military. Here's what I see a parallel. I joined the military. They had the USO Club. You're familiar with the USO Club? They're out there, they do things for the GIs, just like what you're doing. Nobody goes to them. It was so rinky-dink. The USO was like, this is a joke. So I don't know. If they had a library thing, I don't think the GIs would go to it. I don't think they would. Not the GIs I knew. And to be candid, I think those people in the Air Force that are in headquarters squadron are probably some of the smarter people. So I don't know. I would say I'm a little surprised at this whole thing about veterans in the library. That's it.